Hi, this is Brian back. I'm going to do the Gary Johnson portion. Not going to probably be as long as the one with William Weld, just because Gary Johnson is much more of a libertarian than William Weld, which is not a libertarian. So let's start out. Gary Earl Johnson, born January 1st, 1953 in Minot, North Dakota. Became governor of New Mexico in 1995 and served 2 terms to 2003. So Gary does claim that he balanced the New Mexico budget every year while he was in and reduced spending. But I did find that may not be the case. There was an article on National Review by James Spiller who cites that under Johnson the budget grew on average 7.29% per year while he was in office. He inherited a budget of $4.397 billion, and when he left in 2003 it was $7.721 billion. So fiscally I can't call that conservative. That seems to be quite a bit of growth. And I guess when you get into budgets, apparently New Mexico's constitution said that he did balance the budget for outlays, and this gets into accounting practices that can be confusing. I'm not going to go into all this and connect all the dots. There's what you and I would consider to be a balanced budget for our house, our household. It's not the same for New Mexico apparently. So when he does say that he balanced the budget, you can't look at it as terms of you balanced the budget like in your own household. It's apples and oranges. So a little bit of a politician talk coming from Johnson on that point. But if you want those dots connected, just do a little digging and see what the New Mexico method of accounting is. But yeah, just know that it's not what it might seem to be from a layman's point of view. Okay, now I want to take apart some of this Libertarian town hall that Johnson and Weld did. And I want to focus on Johnson and his points. So let's look at the first part here.
We are going into this as a team, really. Bill Weld, being my running mate, is beyond my wildest expectation. A political role model for me, but we're not going to have separate staffs.
Okay, I thought this was a good segue from the Bill Weld portion to the Gary Johnson. Johnson's sitting there with Bill Weld talking about how great he is and how he was a role model. And I got a real issue with that. Whoever you, if you're in politics or if you're a person in life, if you're going to endorse somebody or spend time with them, a person is known by the company they keep. And if he's saying this much about Bill Weld, it really lowers my opinion of Gary Johnson. After what I gave in the last few videos about Bill Weld and where he stands and being an establishment. He always backed establishment candidates. He's always backing establishment causes. And for Gary Johnson to just gush over him this much right here at the beginning, it's very disappointing. And he says that they want to govern as a team. Again, they made that very clear that they don't want to just be president and vice president. They want to be co-presidents, basically. So I think in the terms of a vice president and what the other vice presidents of the Greens and the Democrats and the Republicans, they all have bad VPs. I don't like any of them. But the difference here is that Johnson and Weld are saying they're co-presidents, more or less, where the others are not saying that at all. So a little more attention has to be applied to this than you would normal VP candidates because of this continuous statement of operating as a team. Just saying.
Trump was that Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person to ever run for president. Is that a view that you would embrace?
That is not a view that I would embrace. I don't think either of us are going to engage in any sort of name-calling that we're going to...
Okay, with Hillary Clinton, I feel is a bellwether, and if you're not willing to come out and say she's a criminal with all the freaking evidence out there, And he says they're not going to engage in name calling, and Bill Weld already called Donald Trump a huckster and everything like that. I know Gary's trying to like stay above the fray and not get into the mudslinging and stuff, but he seems to do that a lot. Like he doesn't want to get into take a stance on things. Throughout these libertarian town halls, he seems to use a lot of word acrobatics to try to get around from giving a precise answer to something, whether it be on prostitution questions or Black Lives Matter or a number of things like that. He just seems to jump all over the place, and I frankly don't really like that. I find it to be a little disingenuous, and it kind of makes you kind of unsure about the guy and where he stands on things. So let's move on to the next point.
I'll say the name, you hit me with the first thing that comes to mind. Remember, we've got an audience here and a lot of people watching out there as well. President Barack Obama.
Good guy.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton. A wonderful public servant. I guess I would say that.
Donald Trump.
I'm sure there's something good to say about Donald somewhere. I'm sure. In the debates, I play a game in the debates. So during the Republican debate, when it was asked the question, "Will you support the nominee?" I would have said, "Look, I'll leave it open, but I would not support Donald Trump based on what he has said to this point," and that was all the things that he had said to that point. I'll leave it open, but everybody else said they would support the nominee. I would have said no to Donald Trump unless things change.
Okay, and the moderator is asking, I'll throw out a name and what's your thoughts on it, Gary? And Gary has a nice thing to say about Barack Obama. He struggles with Clinton, but he does say she's a nice, good public servant. Like he's really struggling not to say something bad about her. Like he doesn't want to be politically incorrect almost. But then when he gets to Trump, oh man, he just he's very, he makes it sound like it's such a struggle to come up with something. Like I'm sure there's something nice that can be said about him, but gee, I just don't know what it would be. And talks about not wanting to support him. And so my point in this is he seems to be much more in favor of the current Democrats than Trump, which is very, very discouraging coming from a Libertarian candidate that's supposed to be anti-state and anti-corruption. God.
Earlier today, House Speaker Paul Ryan unveiled the Republican plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. What would you do with Obamacare?
Well, looking to get elected president and vice president, and as a team, hey, we're gonna take a look at this legislation, and if it accomplishes the notion of lower costs and as good or better health care, count on the signature.
So is Obamacare out, or is it in and modified? What is it?
I'm going to assume that Republican proposals accomplish that. If the proposals don't accomplish that, then I'm not on board.
Okay, well, this is one of those verbal acrobatic feats of Johnson when put a simple question to him about Obamacare and how he feels about it. I don't know. I just don't feel like he's a good leader. He just is just all over the place with stuff. Doesn't come out and state things in a way that would make people that support him feel good about where he stands. It just leaves you wanting. Like, does he really stand here, or is he over here? Or, he seems like he likes to allow himself a lot of wiggle room on these positions, which, yeah, it's just a typical politician's trick in my. I don't know. He just isn't that inspiring. I would say in past years, if he was, if it was, like the McCain, Obama back in 2008, yeah, I would have voted for him. because that was a no-choice year with those two. Yeah, but he didn't run in 08, so let's move on.
Jim.
Good evening, governors. Both of the major party candidates have embraced a protectionist, anti-free trade policy. Tell us why supporting free trade benefits American businesses and American consumers.
Well, free trade does benefit. I think that unfairly, free trade has come under criticism for being crony capitalism. Look, we're anti-crony capitalism. So much of legislation that gets passed, so much of what goes on under the guise of free trade really is crony capitalism. The fact that favoritism is for sale when it comes to government, and Congress sells it. Government can level the playing field for everyone, and saw that as governor of New Mexico.
Okay, so the Libertarian position on free trade is in favor of free trade. So he's consistent in that regard. He does say towards the end of that the government can level the playing field. That has so many connotations because government can pick winners and losers. And if you come in and you're a fair-minded politician and you change that to where the losers are now winning over the winners, or the past winners, I don't know, Libertarian position on that is government should have a hands-off approach when it comes to matters of business and stuff. So he gives a mixed signal there in terms of Libertarian positions. Again, he's just all over the place with his answers, and a lot of wiggle room. Wiggle Johnson is what I will start calling him. I did come across some material recently on free trade. I've never been personally convinced that free trade is good for a country. I've always had some doubts in my mind. And there's a book that came to my attention. It's called On the Question of Free Trade by Dr. James Miller and Vox Day, where they talk about the dynamics of the global economy has changed the precept of free trade being good for everybody, which I don't think it is, but be worth checking. I plan on buying this book and reading it. It's called On the Question of Free Trade by James Miller, Dr. James Miller and Vox Day. So if you're interested in that, on the question of free trade, might be worth getting. It's on Amazon for like under $3.
Libertarians haven't traditionally embraced the Black Lives Matter movement. Would you, and why?
Yes, well, I do, and I'll come back to the drug war. If you're of color, there's a 4 times more likelihood that you'll end up behind bars than if you're not of color.
Okay, I'm back here again on the group politics thing. He's coming back and talking about groups and being drugged into this socialist thing of groups having rights as opposed to individuals having rights, which is totally anti-libertarian. Libertarians are individuals have rights. If you protect the individual, you protect everybody, groups included. And so for him to fall into this trap every time and even promote it and William Weld even more about groups this and groups that, it's just freaking disgusting. That is not libertarian. And for Gary Johnson to do this as well, it's, again, he's a very soft libertarian. He's more of a moderate Republican, kind of between Democrat, Republican, and a lot of this stuff. Yeah, group politics versus individual rights. It's pretty clear cut, and he fails the test on this. Okay, looks like I've run out of time. I can only do these for 15 minutes, so check out the Gary Johnson Part 2 in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching.